Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at a deeply chilling sequence of events from back in 2019, out in Jharkhand, India. What starts out as a totally mundane everyday grocery run for two young guys, John and his brother-in-law, well, it rapidly spirals into absolute terror. It's one of those stories that really makes you question what happens when modern skepticism just crashes head-on into deep-rooted local folklore. So let's set the scene, right? John is visiting his sister. She's a government school teacher, 7 months pregnant, and she recently moved to this new village near Gumla. They need some basic supplies, so the two guys head out to a bustling, bi-weekly local market. And it's at this market in Tangar, Toli that the whole vibe just completely shifts. The guys had bought some pork, cooked a bit up, and were just knocking back a few drinks waiting for the sun to go down. They even share some food with this passing village elder. Everyone affectionately calls him Dadu. But the moment Dadu realizes they're planning to carry raw pork across the river after dark, his entire demeanor completely flips. He gives them this dead serious warning. He says, "Don't cross the bridge with this pork right now. It wouldn't be right." I mean, he's basically pleading with them to leave the meat behind. So, what happens when city logic meets ancient village lore? This is where we see a massive clash of worldviews. These young guys, fully armed with their city mindset, they just brush off the old man's warning. They're probably thinking, he's just had too much to drink, or maybe he just wants to keep our meat for himself. It perfectly captures that modern tendency we all have, right? To just arrogantly dismiss local warnings because we think we're smarter. To get back home, John and his brother-in-law have to navigate this immense physical trap. They literally have to cross a bridge spanning the Nagpani River. And listen, this isn't just a quick hop over a little stream. This bridge is exactly 600 meters long. Now imagine being on a heavily loaded motorcycle in the pitch black of night. 600 meters suddenly feels like an absolute eternity. It creates this isolated, inescapable corridor. And the terrifying part? They're forced to cross it not just once, but twice in the dark. Let's map this out, because the start of their day was surprisingly normal, which honestly makes the escalation so much scarier. So 3 p.m., they roll into the Tangar Toli market to run some innocent errands to help out John's pregnant sister. By 5 p.m., they're buying fresh pork, cooking a bit up, just enjoying a casual little picnic. It isn't until 7 p.m. when the sun dips and that creeping darkness sets in that Dadu delivers his ominous warning. The transition from a totally relaxed afternoon to a deeply sinister evening is just almost imperceptible. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the deadly hubris of these young guys. They are relying entirely on what we can call the city mindset. They just rationalized away the danger, figuring Dadu is just some superstitious, maybe slightly tipsy old guy. But Tangar Toli operates on a totally different wavelength. Village reality. Out there, ancient rules apply. Unspoken dangers are very real. And the absolute non-negotiable golden rule of the area is this: you absolutely do not cross that river after dusk, especially not carrying raw meat. So, realizing these guys are completely blowing off his verbal warning, Dadu asked them for a ride back to his house. And once they get there, he takes one final, desperate measure to keep them safe. He hands John's brother-in-law this small paper packet filled with some kind of mysterious powder. And his instructions are intensely specific. He says, "Keep this in your pocket, and if you run into any trouble whatsoever on the Nagpufani River, throw this powder into the water, and whatever you do, do not look back." It's a wildly specific protective measure, and it really shows just how absolutely certain this old man was of the threat waiting in the dark. Which brings us to part 1, the first encounter, on the bridge. Let's see how this unfolds. Okay, so it's about 8:15 p.m., pitch black outside. They're cruising at maybe 45 kilometers per hour, getting close, like 200 meters away from the bridge entrance. Suddenly, John starts shivering uncontrollably. I mean, like he's freezing to death. He completely stops responding. The brother-in-law pulls the bike over right at the start of the bridge to see what's wrong, and he notices John is just staring blankly down to the far end. So the brother-in-law looks, and he sees her. A woman in this filthy, torn white sari, slowly walking up toward them from the river. Immediate panic, right? They try to bolt, but the motorcycle inexplicably stalls out, completely dead. As this woman inches closer, John is practically paralyzed with pure terror. Then it clicks. The brother-in-law remembers Dadu's powder. He rips it out of his pocket, chucks it right off the bridge into the river below, and absolutely refuses to look back. Instantly, the bike kicks back to life. The brother-in-law literally grabs John's leg, cranks the throttle, and speeds out onto the bridge. But guys, the horror doesn't stop there. They're hitting 60 kilometers per hour. They glance over and realize this woman is walking right alongside them. She is effortlessly keeping pace with a speeding motorcycle. I mean, it's physically impossible. This insane pursuit continues all the way down the road until they finally blast past a local Hanuman temple. The exact second they cross that religious landmark, she vanishes, gone, and they make it home safely.
Now we move to part 2, the midnight dash, to the hospital.
So the guys are back home. They're incredibly shaken but safe, and they intentionally hide the whole terrifying encounter from John's pregnant sister, to protect her from the shock. They eat, they go to sleep, but then, right at midnight, she wakes up screaming in agony with severe stomach pains. They have no choice but to go back out. A motorcycle obviously won't work for a pregnant woman in severe pain, so the brother-in-law borrows a neighbor's car. By 12:25 a.m., they're racing toward the hospital, which terrifyingly means they have to cross that exact same bridge. As they fly past a local Bajrang Bali temple, the men see the spirit again, just mating. They push through, make it to the hospital, and the doctor diagnoses the pain as just severe gas. By 3:30 a.m., they're officially discharged. But guess what? As they walk out into the dark hospital parking lot, the entity is standing right there, right next to their car.
The terrifying thing is, only the 2 men can see her. They silently load the sister into the back seat and just hit the gas. As they're driving through these super eerie, totally empty roads, the brother-in-law nudges John, gesturing for him to check behind them. John rolls down the window, sticks his head out into the night air, and instantly feels this chilling, totally unnatural cool wave pass right through his hair. The spirit isn't just standing there anymore. She's actively stalking the car. She is right on their tail. As they get closer to that dreaded Nagfani River Bridge for the very last time, the tension in the car is just unbearable. And remember, they don't have any of Dadu's protective powder left. Then, right as they hit the entrance to the bridge, the sister, who this entire time has been completely unaware of any ghost, leans forward from the back seat and whispers, "Stop the car right here. We don't want to go any further." The timing of those words just chilling. It absolutely breaks the brother-in-law. He goes into a state of sheer, blinding panic, completely ignores her, and just floors the accelerator. This brings us to the climax. Part 3. The bridge crash, a tragic end. The car is practically rocketing onto the 600-meter bridge in the dead of night. Without warning, the woman in the white sari materializes directly in front of the vehicle. Pure reflex kicks in, and the brother-in-law just slams on the brakes. The car violently overturns, crashing right in the absolute middle of the bridge. The aftermath is just horrific. Both men are thrown out onto the pavement. They're injured but conscious. They look over and see the pregnant sister lying there completely unconscious, half hanging out of the wreckage. And then the most bizarre, heartbreaking interaction unfolds. The spirit slowly walks over and sits quietly next to the sister. She stares at her really intently, suddenly bursts into loud, agonizing cries, and reaches out to gently touch her body. Then, in this horrific twist, the spirit stands up, lets out this blood-curdling laugh, runs to the edge of the bridge, and leaps right off into the river below. Part 4. The origin story. A dark past. To actually understand that completely bizarre sequence of crying and laughing on the bridge, we really have to look at the heartbreaking revelations that came out in the days following the crash. Neighbors eventually arrive, rescue the family, and rush them back to the hospital. But the sheer physical trauma of the accident, mixed with whatever supernatural encounter happened on that bridge, took a devastating toll. The doctors had to deliver the most tragic news possible. The baby in the sister's womb did not survive. Later on, when the sister finally recovers enough to return to her job at the local school, a cleaning lady there sits her down and explains the extremely dark history behind the Tangar Toli rules. This really grounds the terrifying ghost story in a horrific, real-world historical tragedy. So, years ago, a pregnant tribal woman lived in the area. While her husband was away, a group of Naxalite insurgents attacked her, murdered her, and threw her body right off that exact bridge into the Nagfani River. According to the local folklore, her spirit is just trapped there, eternally mourning and desperately searching for her lost unborn child. And that right there is the real reason why locals absolutely never cross that bridge after 7 p.m. Desperate for some kind of closure, and obviously terrified that the spirit might still be attached to this sister, the family decides to visit a local exorcist. And what he tells them provides this final, chilling confirmation that directly ties the ancient village folklore right to this modern family's tragedy. He essentially tells them there is no possession to cure here. He just says the spirit has taken what it wanted, her child. And honestly, that leaves us with a really profound realization to unpack. So often, we roll in with our city logic, right? We write off these local legends as just silly superstitions meant to keep kids in line. But as this explainer painfully illustrates, right behind that supernatural veneer is usually a monument to a very real, very historical trauma. The ghost on the bridge wasn't just some random monster, it was the echo of a murdered woman. And those strict village rules, they were designed to navigate the permanent scars she left behind. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. When we arrogantly dismiss local ghost stories, what true historical horrors are we actually choosing to forget?